You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos Country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Welcome in, Broncos Country. It is another episode of Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and of course, joining me once again, he's back. I'm very, very excited, Mr. Nick Kendell. Nick, it's an honor to have you back.
Man, 2020 has been just chaos. We had the derecho travel here through Iowa. And I know we're always talking weather to start off our podcast. That's very much by the book, but the eastern Iowa just got absolutely just pulverized by 100-plus wind, and where I was no exception. We didn't get hit as bad as Cedar Rapids, but the Quad Cities got hit pretty bad. We were out of power for a while. So good to be back, and I'm only going to be here 1 week again until I'm making that slow drive out to Seattle with the puppy and the cat and the wife. So that'll be fun, but I'm excited for the next 2 episodes at least.
Yeah. Well, we'll take it as we can get it, and like I said, just glad to have you back, and just good to see you alive and kicking, and kicking or just kind of chugging along, I guess you could say. Chugging along. Sometimes that's exactly what you got to do to keep going. But very glad. We got a great show for you guys. We're going to talk about some things that happened at training camp today. We're going to look at where the rookies at. What does it mean if they are getting first team reps? They're not getting first team reps. And so make sure you're hitting us up in the comments about any rookies that you'd like us to talk about here, because it's a large group. We'll try to get to all of them that we possibly can, but we also want to get to all your questions as well. So make sure you're following us on Twitter. You can find me at Carl Dumler MHH, and of course Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And you can follow the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod, and subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave us a rating. That really means a lot to us. And of course, head on over to milehighhuddle.com of Sports Illustrated. Lots of great off-season content, and now getting close to season content. Very excited that we get to say that pretty soon. And know that this podcast is powered by Overtime Media.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah, and absolutely. Before we get going any further, I want to say hello to some people in the chat here. Ernie Mace, always one of the first people to come in. Denver Broncos are the greatest team, capital T on that team. We really do appreciate you, Ernie, coming in. Dennis Elliott, seeing you a few times. Greetings to all of the Broncos country, all of it, all of them indeed. Buwana, good to see you. We love you, Buwana. Let me see who else is in here. Hispanic Rambo Jr., given the orange and blue. Gotta love it. Albert and Michelle Knoppers. We got the tag team account here. Too bad I can't be here live, helping the neighbors move. Hey, man, as somebody who's moving, God bless you. But I will listen to it later. Keep up the great work, guys. Really do appreciate it. We got Toy Mafia in here. We got Terry Randall. Good to see you. Taylor Vamp, Todd Anderson, Jerry Holton, James Campbell. We got a good crew. ZW Designs. So Zach Trullo. Zach, help me out here. How did I pronounce it last time? I see it all the time. We're buds going back here on some Facebook groups for the Broncos. So, Zach, we're also going to get to this topic as well. But first, the rookies. Obviously, we are draft heads. I guess you can call them a little bit nervous for the draft this season, because I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to evaluate the tape with so many teams and players dropping out. But that's a future Nick problem. We're not going to worry about that right now. Broncos rookies battling right now, and I feel like you got to start off with a first-round pick, Jerry Jeudy.
I'm going to say this. I don't think I've ever heard the veterans talk this well about a rookie in my life. Mm-hmm. You got Kareem Jackson, who's saying that he has never seen a player with this good of route running, those cuts. He's never seen a player with that ability. You've got Drew Lock talking about him. You've got veterans left and right just talking about this kid and what he's done. AJ Bouye has talked about how he loves getting to match up against Jeudy because it challenges him so much to work on his technique. And so when I hear those kind of things, especially on this kind of crazy offseason, just imagine if Jeudy had a regular offseason. One, he'd already be in the starting lineup. But two, he's already kind of there.
11 personnel starting today.
Yeah. So, he's there, and he'll be the number 2 soon enough. But it's just great to hear all of these veterans who just, even unprompted, will bring up Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I mean, he's so far, I mean, it's training camp, so it's all the hype season right now, guys throwing against air. Oh, they look brilliant. We'll see how it comes out when the season actually is going, the live bullets are flying. But you mentioned it. They are praising him left and right, his ability to separate. I feel like those at practice are just gushing about Jerry Jeudy. He might almost even be outshining Cortland Sutton. Again, we'll see how it looks when the bullets are flying and there's a little bit more padded practices and whatnot going on. But, it's all really good. And I think the thing that makes me the thing I'm most interested in, obviously the Broncos have a bevy of wide receivers after using a first and second round pick at wide receiver this year. And a seventh. Yeah, exactly. A 6th round pick last year. Don't forget about Winfrey. Just how it all stacks up and Jerry's usage early. It is very early. What the rookies are doing right now is not what they're going to be doing when week 1 rolls around, let alone week 8. So Jerry Jeudy early on, it seems like 11 personnel. He is the starting slot, which does not shock me. I mean, obviously you don't want a slot receiver at the 15th overall pick as overall value, but that's where Jeudy did his best work at Alabama. So year 1, especially out of the gates, I think it really does make a lot of sense to have Jeudy as that starting slot for his sake. Maybe not in comparison to the rest of the Broncos wide receivers, but for where Jerry Jeudy is going to be best out of the gate.
Right. And so I do expect right now, just looking at after 4 practices, remember lots can change, injuries, players stepping up as time goes on. But just with the shortened off season, I do see him starting off there in the slot at the beginning of the year. And like I said, it's his most comfortable position. It's where he's at his best. It's where he can use his skill set the best. And I'm just not sure Hamler where he's going to exactly be, because here's what I've heard about him at camp. Now, remember, we're not there firsthand watching this with our eyes. So we're taking a lot of other people's words on some things that are going on. But we've talked to some people and that are in the know on some of this. And Hamler's been up and down. He has some outstanding, great plays. I mean, we got highlights of a couple of them. I think it was maybe the second practice where he made that diving catch really far down the field. He has the one where he did about 3 different moves to get himself open and was wide open on the sideline, I think going against Devontae Harris, if I remember right, and looked really, really good in that route. But he's also had some drops. He had one that got tipped up for an interception. It was kind of a rookie on rookie. Ojemudia got the interception. And so that's a little bit of why I wonder if they're going to wait on Hamler just a little bit. Just can you trust him? I mean, that's always the biggest thing when a season starts. Can your quarterback trust you? Peyton Manning showed if you dropped one, it might be a while before Peyton Manning comes back and throws to you.
Yeah, all good points. I think that the thing that upsets me the most, and maybe this is a player that I'm lower on than other people, but I think Tim Patrick is only okay. He's not great. He's kind of just a more big body vertical guy. He'll make some great catches and runs fast in a straight line, but health has been an issue for him. Not the best separator, especially crossing the field. And for a Shermer offense, at least what it has been in the recent years, I wasn't sure how that fit would be. But right now it seems like it's Tim Patrick and Sutton on the outside with Jeudy in the slot as the starting offense. Long term, I think ideally you'd obviously have Sutton and Jeudy on the outside with Hamler in the slot. But it sounds like early on, Hamler is much more going to be a gadget guy and honestly special teamer as well, which is something that I believe John and I, Buona Beast and I talked about when we did our tag team podcast. But it's interesting to see. I mean, I'm excited to see Jerry Jeudy out there. He's getting second team snaps on the boundary. He's doing well out there as well. So I do think that even though you're going to see Jerry Jeudy probably more slot early on, long-term goal for him, long-term role is probably more inside-outside, but leaning more towards the boundary.
Yeah. And I do like this. I'd like for Hamler to be on the field. He can create space for everyone else. I mean, that's why they drafted him. Mm-hmm. Because that's exactly what he does. He's got the big play ability. He's got the ability to take that quick slant play, turn it into an 80-yard touchdown, but he's also got the ability to stretch the field, open up everything underneath. But at the same time, again, if he can't be trusted on the field to do what he's supposed to do, he's going to be limited early on. And unfortunately, again, you have to always keep in mind with these rookies, one, the coaches like veterans, and especially on a shortened offseason, it's kind of my second part here. The shortened offseason means these rookies have less chances to really prove to these coaches that they can do what they're going to do. And especially no preseason games. So they're going to have to go completely off practice where a lot of guys, I was listening to somebody the other day and they were talking about how Terrell Davis, That's how he made a name for himself, was in preseason games. These guys don't get that opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's weird for us too. We were talking about it before the show kicked off here with no preseason games. Like you said, we're taking everything we hear from a grain of salt. Everybody looks incredible in camp or terrible. There's no in between. And also everyone's in the best shape of their life, blah, blah, blah. But until you see it out on the field, whether that be the duo practices like the Broncos have had against the 49ers the last few years or in preseason, you just really – it's hard to tell. There's difference, like I've said it many times on here, but there's a difference in doing it in practice. There's a difference in doing it in preseason, and there's a difference in doing it in regular season action. Just the intensity ramps up. The game's played differently out there at that speed. Right. So, again, taking it with a grain of salt. I do think that it's important to distinguish, though, that Hamler probably early on is going to be a little bit more gadgety. I know it's a dirty word. People have Isaiah McKenzie PTSD with that word. But there's special teams value there. And also, I can't find the list. I was looking it up. But if Hamler isn't he's definitely the youngest person on the Broncos. At least that's likely to make the roster. I think he's still only 19 years old. But he might even be one of the youngest players in the entire NFL. So even if Hamler has kind of a getting his toes wet first year in the NFL, that's not the worst. I'm not going to be upset about that if he doesn't light the world on fire his rookie season.
Right. I'm with you there. And those two, they'll have their role. Judy probably bigger than Hamler, obviously, and very excited to see what he can do with this offense. But let's get to the third round guys. These are kind of the depth guys that you hope can turn into starters. And we can start with maybe the biggest name, Lloyd Cushenberry. Everybody expects that this guy is going to be a day one starter.
Yeah.
And so far, he has not got a single first team rep. If anything, he's been kind of, in some ways, the third team because Patrick Morris got the second day with the first team. And, of course, Austin Schlottman has got the other days.
I don't want to do a victory lap here, but when the Broncos – I think I was on Orange and Blue or I can't remember what the radio station is in Denver. Sorry, but it was with Ben Albright and Ryan Edwards, and they were talking about, any surprises here going over the Broncos rookie class. And I'm like, when those draft picks originally happened, everybody's really excited about those players. They're thinking, everybody's going to be a hit, not only over the contract, but right away. And once you're outside like the top 40, 50 picks, typically those guys the first year are going to be a little bit more rotational, depth kind of guys. And if they make a big start or a big splash year one, that's a better return on value or a better, I guess, early season start, early career start than you'd expect for most third round picks. So while people were excited about Cushenberry, Ajim, Ojemudia, I was very much in the pump the brakes camp and saying, don't forget about Schlottman, don't forget about Morris, just because they're third round picks. They take a little bit of time. If they hit right away, especially for a low value position like running back or something like, I guess another position, not low value, but linebackers can hit a little quicker. But typically offensive linemen, defensive linemen, cornerbacks, if they're third round picks, they're going to take a little bit of time. So Cushenberry, it's a little bit disheartening that he's not getting the starting snaps. We'll see where it is when the season comes around. But I said it then. I said everybody's expecting Cushenberry, but Schlottman and Morris have just as good a chance to start the season out of the gate.
Yeah.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
And like I said, when coaches kind of lean towards veterans, and these guys have been with Munchak for more than one season, or for one season at least, they're in their second season. They have what he expects of them down. Lloyd Cushenberry is still learning what the offense is going to be. He's still learning the playbook. He's still trying to get down timing, everything else. I mean, it's just a whole new world going from college to the NFL. Now, he did play at LSU, and obviously they were the featured offense of college football this last year, but there's still this huge jump. And so while I do think there's going to be – I still think there's going to be a chance for him to start. There's so few practices. If he's not getting first team reps by next week, I really have a hard time seeing how they can put him in there as the first team center.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's get to the chat here really quick. We got some people talking. Obviously, I am back. I appreciate you guys having me back. That storm knocked the power out here in eastern Iowa, and I'm going to be gone again next week, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but that's okay. Todd Anderson, good to see you, Todd. Hammer can be used on go routes and gadget plays, screens, etc. I mean, that's probably year one. Also special teams. I mean, Deontay Spencer, I know he was a Pro Bowler or a Pro Bowl alternate last year. Granted, again, Trevor Siemian made the Pro Bowl. Pro Bowls are a joke these days. Don't use those as an accolade. And Buwana, share the details here. Kenny Clark just got paid. That's awesome. I love Kenny Clark. Great player. And also some people say giving me some positives here. Nick and Carl's bookshelf better. Looks like Nick's bookshelf game is on par or doing well. I got Peyton Manning up there. He's not falling. I got some painter's tape. Actually, I had a flag I tried to put up, would not stick to the painter's tape. So unfortunate. And Dennis Wood's coming in. Nick, good to see you recovered from the storm and move. Move hasn't happened yet. We just packed the trailer today. It was picked up. Well, it'll meet us at our apartment or our house, I guess, when we move in on the 28th. So excited for that. Oh, and also Terry coming in again. Nick's Beer Fund, my first podcast beer, one of the first few beers I've had actually in a bit since the ulcer. So it's just been August has been a month, guys. I don't even know what else to tell you. So let's get back to it here. The 3rd round picks, Cushenberry, maybe starting year 1, maybe not. I think this is a good transition to actually talking about the offensive line.
Yeah.
Offensive line had a poor game today or poor practice today. It's a practice. Again, we talk about practice, but a poor practice today. No way around it, especially the tackles, but the interior struggled too. So I guess, what do you make of it? We were talking a little bit beforehand. You had some good insights I agreed with, so I'll give you the floor here since I'm rambling. What do you think about the offensive line struggling here today?
Well, I would say, one, most of the defensive line pieces have been together other than Jarrell Casey, but Jarrell Casey was going to come in and be a dominant force anyway. And 2, that defensive line, they are going to be a great unit this year. I mean, we're talking top 3 in the NFL, I would say, when you're talking about the outside linebackers or edge players, whatever you want to call them, and the interior defensive line with the starters and the depth players that they've got. The Broncos really have something special there. So keep that in mind when you're hearing about them getting beat. Well, they're getting beat by some great players. Elijah Wilkinson, he should be getting beat by Von Miller. Garrett Poles, I would kind of hope that Bradley Chubb, the number 5 overall pick, would be beating him. You hope you hear them winning at least some of the reps. Today it didn't sound like especially Elijah Wilkinson was winning any reps. And so and kind of bodes to my thought that Dotson's going to be the starter at some point. But you also have to remember they are still moving some pieces around. They still don't know who their starting center is going to be. Obviously, right tackle still up in the air. Elijah Wilkinson still recovering from injury and trying to get things kind of tuned in. They're learning a new offense. And usually, this is my final thing I'll say, usually offense is behind the defense when training camp starts.
I'm upset. I was literally just going to make that point, especially with the offensive line. And with padded practices being rolled back, how weird this offseason is. The offensive line is all about cohesion, maybe a little bit less so in a gap scheme than a zone scheme, but still, that unit's got to be synergistic. And this early on, a weird offseason, just getting into padded practices, they're going to be behind. I mean, it's just that fact. So do I like the fact that the offensive line was struggling today and it made the offense get all out of whack? No. Granted, when it's your own team going against their own teammates, is that because the offensive line is terrible, or is it because the defensive line and edge rushers are fantastic? It's the same thing with wide receivers, honestly. Are Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler and Deshaun Hamilton and Tim Patrick looking great against the twos because the Broncos' depth at cornerback and safety is bad? Or is it because those guys are so good? We won't know until we see them against other teams. I mean, it's just right. We won't know because they're going up against that guys, and that's the teammates they have. Yeah. So in the Broncos' offensive line depth, Broncos' cornerback depth, probably the 2 biggest questions on this team as far as that unit or that level of the team.
Yeah.
So we just won't know until we see it later on.
Yep, I'm with you, and I mean this is right. You play as good as your unit for the offensive line. In my opinion, they need to gel together and build chemistry. It does. It takes some chemistry time, especially that offensive line learning to communicate. When you got all these new pieces, you got young guys trying to work in there. It is asking a lot of that unit to really be ready. Practice number 4 to take on such a unit that was a top 10 unit last year, and then they added guys like Jarrell Casey.
Draymond Jones a year better,
right? Exactly.
Chubb is back. It looks good, and Ajim's had flashes too. So I guess before we get to Ajim, let's get to Ojemudia. He had his first start with the ones today. I heard he did okay, but right now Yadam and Bosby have gotten the majority of the number 3 cornerback roles. Guys, It's a nickel defense league, 3 defensive backs, so I'm going to consider that the starting unit. So Callahan in the slot, Bosby the boundary corner, the solo corner, and then Bosby as that other cornerback, the other boundary cornerback. So that's how it is shaping up right now. Maybe Ojemudia can get in there, but it does feel like they're bringing about Ojemudia a little bit small. Not shocking for Donatello and Fangio. They kind of tend to bring about the rookies a little slower. There's a little bit of a veteran benefit there because they ask so much of them mentally.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I mean, we even saw last year the defense started out slow because they were not comfortable with the system. So you throw in a rookie that's learning the whole new system, that's still learning how to play in the NFL. That's a lot thrown at them at that cornerback spot because what they ask that secondary players to do, it's some of the more complicated in the NFL. Now, when it works really well. When those guys start gelling, it's why it's one of the best turnover defenses in all of football. It's why it's one of the toughest for any kind of offensive coordinator to try to game plan because they might look like they're in zone, then all of a sudden switch to man. They might look like they're in man, switch to zone. It can be one of the more confusing ones, but that means your guys have to be spot on in what they're doing on the field.
And they not only need to know their job, like the Wade Phillips defense. If you do your job, you're fine. There's a lot of checks where you the cornerback and the safety have to see and read the same thing because if they don't, somebody's getting beat deep. I think Stephon Diggs got behind Chris Harris Jr. a couple times last year, but there was miscommunication between the safety and the cornerback. So they got to not only know what their job is, but they got to know the job of everybody around them too and read it the same. So right. It's complex that way, but it'll be interesting.
Oh, that was not. I was looking for this one from Todd Anderson. Bosby may be ahead of Ojemudia. Yeah, I think he is. And something else to kind of keep in the back of your head, Bosby has actually been with Fangio longer than any other cornerback but Callahan. Because back in 2015, he was with the Chicago Bears, was on their practice squad when Fangio was there.
Yeah.
So he's been in this system a little bit more, and it's easy to see. He feels very comfortable with it. It's probably why he signed with the Broncos over some other teams because he knows this is a system that really fits his game really well. And so I'm cheering for Bosby. You know how much I was a fan of his before the season started last year. I thought he was going to be a breakout player. He was looking like he was going to make me right, and then he got hurt.
Man, so is life. But that's injuries happen. That's why you got to have depth, especially on defense. Right. Want to be making a good comment here. Everyone leave a quick like for Nick and Carl. We would appreciate that, guys. This is Building the Broncos here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Going to be a little bit different for me when I have to do it at 5 p.m. Pacific Time rather than the 7 o'clock time I'm used to. I'm going to have to – luckily, I've been working from home recently, but if I'm having to go in anywhere, I'm going to have to haul my rear end back somewhere to get to a computer. Follow us on Twitter at BTB Football Pod, and also follow us at Mile High Huddle. Really important, guys. Go to huddleuppod.com to get your swag on. We got shirts. We got these beautiful hats. These are my favorite hats. I am actually, Carl, I really do like the design for the Mile High Insider ones as well. But because you sent me this one out of the love of your heart, it's number one in my heart as well. And most importantly, guys, if you're enjoying this show, if you're liking Carl and I's banter, if you're liking the conversation in the comment section, Facebook, YouTube, doesn't matter, subscribe, like, and share. That can really help us reach out to new listeners and can help us continue to bring you these Denver Bronco deep dives each and every week. It's going to be even more important with the season ramping up and real football actually here. We're not just pontificating anymore. There's actually stuff happening, which feels weird because the world is in such shambles, but things are actually happening. So I'm taking that as a positive.
All right, we got Husker Hardcore. I'm guessing that's maybe Husker Hardcore.
I hope not. That's Husky.
Yeah, Husky.
Like
that could be. There you go. Neither team's going to be playing this year, so sorry about that.
Yeah,
maybe I don't know. Maybe Sean Wade's dad will take care of that. I don't know, but thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate that, and really like the logo there. Love the old school Bronco. I love it. It's one of my favorites. Look at that, repping right there, and Mundungus Creevy. Oh yes. I remember. I love this name. Do you think James opted out because he was going to test positive for HGH or in his Procaine and didn't want to get suspended?
Did he have a full flow of hair now? Is that a thing? I know that he has like a medical condition or something where he doesn't really have much hair, like the eyebrows, everything. Does he have a bunch of hair now? Is it kind of that Brian Urlacher hair plug kind of thing going on?
I don't know.
If it is, somebody hit me up with that picture. I want to see it.
Okay. I haven't seen pictures of him lately.
And we got Noel here. I got to answer this one real quick. Nick, where's the foam Bronco? This is all stuff that was just in my souvenir box from like my childhood and whatnot, or something I scoped. And I helped clean out my old room because I'm moving again. And this was stuff I found, like, you know what? People are giving me a hard time about the empty shelf. Let me just toss up a bunch of these old souvenir things that I had and toss them up there. So the foam Bronco is packed up on its way out to Seattle, but unfortunately not on the shelf here. So I don't.
To my right.
I got you, Noel.
Okay. To my right, actually, I have a giant Broncos helmet puzzle that's been glued together. Somebody brought me in my office. I was really surprised, since I'm surrounded by Chief fans, that they would bring me one of those. But yeah, it's hanging out in my office. It's been here for about 6 months.
Well, awesome. We'll have to see it sometime.
Yeah.
Terry, go ahead, Carl.
All right. Terry Randall coming in with the super chat. Appreciate that. Love the swag that he has in the background there. With a healthy Callahan and the addition of Bouye, how many turnovers do you think the secondary can produce? Hashtag state of being, hashtag Broncos world.
That's a good question, but I think we need to preface it where turnovers are very unpredictable and they vary greatly year to year. Some years you'll have a good defense, but for whatever God knows reason, the ball just does not hit your hand. Some year you'll be incredible. A bunch of turnovers, the ball just seemed to stick to your guys' hands off tips and everything. And it's not sustainable year to year. So I'm hoping for the high turnovers, and there's some skill to it. If you have a good defense, you're more likely to get turnovers. But yeah, and back to number, it's a wide range because luck plays a huge factor in turnovers.
I would also say it kind of depends on how quickly the offense develops.
Yes.
Because if they can get some leads and force teams to have to pass, that's when the turnovers really start coming in. The Chiefs last year, I mean, look at their defense to close out the season. They were actually the number one ranked defense over the last 8 weeks when it comes to scoring defense, because they were forcing a ton of turnovers, and their offense was just outscoring everyone, forcing teams to just have to go crazy, taking some big chances. And I don't think their defense is that good, but they got put into a very good situation.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. I think it was not a few years ago, it's almost a decade now, but the Saints have led the league in turnovers, giving up yards left and right, but they had a great offense and other teams were turning it over, and Saints had a crud ton of turnovers. So just happens sometimes that way. Here we go. Haven't we heard much about Noah Fant? I feel like we have heard some about Noah Fant. It just hasn't been a crazy amount. And I think a lot of people are, especially, I mean, Jerry Jeudy's just kind of fun to watch. He moves different out there. Once the pads are on and the other teams are having to kind of pay attention to the wide receivers, Noah Fant's going to get his. And he also looks absolutely jacked. I've seen pictures of him. He's been hitting the weight room this offseason. I'm excited to see what he looks like with the pads on, with the blocking, honestly, because he actually looks like a tight end. He used to look like a wide receiver out there playing tight end. Dude looks like a superhero. He's got that triangle body shape. So, yeah, I think that we will definitely see him. I know they've been connecting some, just haven't seen the big plays. And with non-padded practices, guess what? Your tight ends typically aren't going to be making the splashy plays.
Right. And Jake Butt's gotten a little bit of talk. I know that's been talked about on here quite a bit. He's a good guy. He's a good story of a guy trying to make that comeback after so many injuries and people wanting him to be good. I think in part because a certain Iowa tight end was taking him the next pick after. And some Bronco fans are a little upset about that, how that all worked out. But no, I think he's fine. I wouldn't worry too much about him not getting talked about a whole lot. There's just a lot of other guys who are probably bigger headline that just kind of draw the attention of everyone.
That's a good point. I want to get to this comment here from James Campbell because we would not be on point if we didn't have a little bit of 2021 draft conversation here. Sean Wade, and it isn't close, so I guess they're asking the number one cornerback or maybe a list of cornerbacks who they liked in the upcoming draft. But I'm also a fan of Caleb Farley. Caleb is really good. I think Kyle Krabs had him as the Broncos pick at 15th overall in his mock draft 1.0. We'll have to see how the Broncos secondary gels and grows this season, or grows and gels, and how they address offensive tackle in the offseason. This is all good conversation here. I just want to preface that. I was
saying it came from this one, from Miller.
Okay.
Which player do you like more, Sean Wade, Alex Leatherwood, or Dylan Moses?
Cornerback or offensive tackle in that one for me. I like Dylan Moses, but he doesn't cover as well as I'd like. But I think the big thing I want to point to there is, I'll say it over and over again this offseason, it's way too early to get too pinned down on one position. Right now, offensive tackle and cornerback seem like the biggest needs, especially when you look at the value of the positions as well. But if the best player available on the board when the Broncos pick is a linebacker, if they're an edge rusher, if they're an interior defensive lineman, those are all directions you should look, because the long term, those are positions the Broncos are going to need to address, just how the team is structured right now. So offensive tackle and cornerback are going to get a weight above those other positions. But if BPA is linebacker, edge, defensive tackle, it might go that way.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah. And some things can change. Like, let's say Bosby just balls out this year. Well, cornerback starts moving down the list of need.
Maybe. Yeah. Callahan and Boye are both easily to move on from.
Okay. Let's say. Okay, then I'll take another step. Let's say Ojemudia looks good too, and they start believing in him. So then you got two young guys that you can start leaning on, that you can see a future with. So it's always flowing. You can't get locked in August what you're going to be doing in April either. Right now,
is there any position more unknown than cornerback for this team? Like, so many things, every single cornerback is a question mark for me entering this season. Every single one in some way or another. They could be really good, but like, so many things have to line up. I do not know about cornerback. Mundunga's coming in and clarifying here. Oh, I think you clicked it. I'll click it as well. My hands are off. Go for it, Carl. You're on. See, losing that here.
You're good. You're good. We're getting our rhythm back. Mundunga's coming in clarifying. Nope, just your basic Juwan James sucks. Hashtag eyebrow opt out joke.
Ah, man. No comment. I appreciate it, but no comment. I don't. If you don't have anything nice to say, I'm just gonna sit on my hands on that one. We should continue on here with the. Here we go. Let's chat about the Jack Earway occurring in training camp. It's both, Vinny. It's everything. Whatever the chat is, whatever direction the chat's going, we're gonna kind of follow along there. And the chat's doing great right now, so appreciate you guys. Love you guys. I think we hadn't really talked about Ajim yet. So what have you heard about Ajim so far? What have you seen, Carl?
So kind of what he showed in college, that he has splash plays, that when he gets his timing down, when he fires off low, he's able to get into the backfield and really disrupt things. But then he's also having those rookie moments where he's kind of getting pushed out of a play that the running play is able to go right at him and get some good yards. And so it's just kind of been up and down. And this is why it was kind of like Draymond last year, training camp. He had a couple splash plays that really got his name out there. And as the season progressed, obviously he got more and more playing time, partly because of injuries, but partly because he was showing better. And I expect the same thing with McTelvin Ajim. I didn't think he was one of those guys that's going to be quite ready this year anyway. He needed a year of just getting into an NFL weight room and putting on some good weight and getting used to fully being an inside player.
Yeah. I mean, if he does any more than what Draymond Jones did last year, it would be a surprise to me. What was he, the 95th overall pick? Something like that. I mean, really late. He's going to be a rotational player this year. It's much more about, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's much more about what Ajim's going to do year 2, year 3, year 4 of his rookie deal rather than what he's going to do this year. So if we see flashes and improvement as the season progresses, that's exactly what you want. Out of the gate, though, I'm not expecting much. The one that I'm excited about, I mean, I'll keep banging the drum, but Draymond Jones sounds like he's having a pretty good camp as well. Mm-hmm. So I think it's –
So did Shelby Harris.
Yeah, so is Shelby Harris. But I'm banging the drum, man. Draymond Jones is coming for that job. He's going to be the starter by the end of the year.
And I did want to get to this since he forgot to kind of add his comment to his donation earlier from Husker Hardcore. I messed up, never watched live, nor listen at work and not on my phone, but glad I was able to donate finally. I had a show like 7 years ago, but a lot of Kansans love the Broncos. Not alone. You are not. Love it. We've got a few. We usually have a few Kansas people in this chat. We've got a few Iowa guys as well. Yeah, it's always kind of fun to see.
Broncos country, state of, or what is it? Not a geographical location, but a state of being, as Chad likes to say. So, Ajim, have you heard where his alignment has been? I think that's a big question. I know they're kind of moving him around. At college, he actually played a decent amount of like edge rusher when they play kind of more of a 3-man front. But is he getting more of that one technique role, or is it more of that 3-4-5?
I'll be honest, I have not heard.
Okay. So that's something, again, eyes there. I want to see it in training camp or in the preseason games. We're not getting that this year, so it's unfortunate. If anybody in the chat kind of has an idea of the technique where Ajim has been playing, we can kind of expand upon that as well. So that's interesting. Those are the Broncos main picks there, obviously the guys in the first 100, but there's a lot of hype also surrounding Broncos' fourth-round pick this year, Albert Okwuegbunam, tight end from Missouri. Obviously a guy who ran like crazy as far as the 40 goes, and also massive. But a guy that I think probably year one you're going to see him more in some specialized packages. And the biggest thing for me is what can he bring special teams wise, and can he play H-back? Because that's where I see their snaps to be had for that kind of position. So
it is crazy to see, like 2 years ago, Broncos tight end room looked like maybe one of the worst in football.
Yeah.
And now we've reached this point where they have some really young, talented players that it's gotten to the point where we're going to have to cut somebody that maybe could make another NFL roster.
Yeah.
I mean, Andrew Beck, if they stick with four, who are your four going to be?
Doesn't matter anymore. Hireman's gone. The unit's going to be there now. I mean, it's probably right now I'd have to say Fant, Okwuegbunam, Vinette, and Beck, but is got a chance as well. I don't want to bang that dead horse. I know Chad and Zach like to talk about him a fair amount, but definitely has a chance. It'll come down though to, again, probably it'll come down to special teams and that H-back role. Right now, I think Beck probably has the heads up. You're probably going to keep Okwuegbunam just because he's a fourth-round pick. But what happens with Beck between Beck and Bud? I think that's probably the area you're looking for most.
Right. And I do wonder if a couple of these rookies might get put onto that protected practice squad area. I'm not saying that Okwuegbunam will be one of those guys.
I don't think they will. Yeah, I think that's serious.
I agree. But I'm just saying it might be a little bit of a shock on some of those guys that might get put on there.
And Ford gets hurt, so he's probably going to be an IR guy.
Yes. And kind of talking about another rookie that could take a veteran's job here. We got Mile High Beauty coming in. Do you guys think Royce will be the odd running back out? I've heard Bellamy is looking good in camp.
I think it's definitely possible, especially with Bellamy's work in the passing game.
Yeah.
That's something that really highlights. Granted, Philip Lindsay's been looking better there too. But in today's NFL, running back needs to be almost as good of a receiver as they do a runner. So we'll see. I mean, just Royce, I don't want to bury on him anymore. Obviously, anybody who's listened to me talk about him before knows that I'm a little bit bitter because I really wanted Fred Warner, and he went one pick before Royce Freeman. A little bit of a letdown pick in that situation, but just not the biggest Royce fan. He doesn't have great vision, doesn't have the boosts, and his running style is like somebody who would have the speed of like Jamal Charles. You know, he wants to kick everything outside where, buddy, you're big, you're low to the ground, be patient and find the hole and lower your head. But that's it. He just wants to kick everything outside. So what can you do?
Yeah. And this is, again, where it just might be one of those where if it's close, give it to the veteran. Just because you feel more comfortable with their ability to run the offense, especially pick up blitz packages. Royce Freeman did pretty good at that last year, showed pretty good hands, and can be a nice little emergency in case one of the other guys goes down, not having to trust a rookie to have to come in and get meaningful snaps on the offense. I don't know. It just depends how risky they really want to be. I think that's going to be the interesting thing that we see when the final roster comes out for a lot of these teams. How risky were teams willing to be during a time like this?
It's going to be, I mean, again, we can only speculate because it's such a weird offseason. Did we get Chris Hernandez comment here? Chris, if we didn't, I'm going to hit it again. Chris, I always love seeing that Super Bowl champion 50 pint glass there filled with, gosh, it's a small picture, but I'm just going to go with an IPA because I trust in my heart of heart that you are a man of taste. Nick's Beer Fund, Carl's Beard Fund, and click those little thumbs up. Chris, we appreciate you so much. And yeah, guys, listen to him. Click those little thumbs up. Jason Peters coming here with a comment that I really think is an interesting one, something that I agreed with as well. I hope Sosa, the nickname for Mattel and Najim guys, adds 20 pounds and works into a solid nose tackle. Honestly, that's what I see as well. He added weight for the Shrine Bowl, whatever they call it now, and didn't lose much explosiveness. And Mike Purcell came into the league at 300 pounds, and now he's up to 325 as a nose tackle. Mike Purcell's, I think probably you'll see Purcell here this year, out the door next year, and then Najim kind of takes that position. So, nose tackle is not the most valuable position in today's NFL, but if he can play that one technique in a 4-2-5 look, the nickel package, then he can bring some value while he's adding weight, pass rush, et cetera, et cetera. So I like this comment a lot, Jason. We're on the same page here. Oh, I see. I can tell by the hue. It's an IPA.
your adult drinks.
I can smell the hops.
All right, looking at a few other questions here, and we can get back to our draft guys here pretty quick. One I did want to get to a little bit here is still the wide receiver room, since the Broncos did use a 7th round pick on Tyree Cleveland, and do you see him being able to make this final roster?
I mean, it probably is going to take an injury at this point. And given how good this draft was at wide receivers, how many good wide receivers there are in the NFL right now, it's probably one of the deepest positions in the league. He just seems destined for practice squad, right? Like, you put him on there, really low odds of him getting picked up, especially without preseason this year. And I think that's probably the direction that it heads.
Yeah. Nope, I agree with you there. Like I said, he can be protected there. Injury happens. You can bring him off. He can still be there. It just kind of saves you a little bit of a roster spot for a veteran that can come in, help on special teams, all those things.
And I want to get to this real quick. None NASCAR 3D. A couple people have brought it up. I've not heard very much of anything about Essang Bassey. He's one of those guys where if we had preseason, he'd be somebody that I would be focusing in on, go back and watch. But with training camp, right now it does seem like he's a little bit more buried on the depth chart. Maybe a guy who doesn't even make the team. I know that he was had some good tape in college, but one of those guys where he's small and he's also not fast, and that's just a bad combo. Sometimes guys make it when they're small and not fast, but I haven't not heard on either end of the spectrum about Bassey, but not hearing about him at all, I think, is probably an unfortunate telltale for him.
Yeah.
And yes, Darian, I am heartbroken about no preseason. I want to evaluate these players. I don't ever need to watch a Hall of Fame game ever again in my life.
Yeah.
But preseason games, I don't know. It's starting to be that time of year where I should be getting excited about them, and some of these things should be coming up, and they'll be playing them on NFL Network at 2 a.m. at night. And, the 49ers are playing the Jags preseason. Well, I really liked – let me see. Who's the 49ers first-round pick this year at wide receiver? His name's just escaping me right now. From Arizona State. Looked like Slender Man.
Oh, escaping me too here.
Somebody in the chat will get it. But anyway, I'm curious how he's doing. I'd really like to go watch him. Or Jalen Hurt. He was hurt last year. And now he played running back for Tennessee. Then he moved to wide receiver, transferred to Baylor. I want to see how he's doing in that scheme. Can't watch those anymore. So it is disheartening. I understand why it's happening, but it just sucks. Especially if you're not somebody actually living in Denver.
Right. Well, and you and I, we get excited about roster building. I mean, that's part of what brought about this show. Ayuk was the one that you were thinking of, Brandon Ayuk. But so we like to evaluate those guys that are probably not going to see the field unless there's an injury this year, but see how they're battling in those games, and to not have that really it's missing such a huge part of what we love to do. And, I know a lot of people hate preseason. We love it. and especially those guys fighting for roster spots, man, they are playing their hearts out in a lot of those games. So it's just I don't usually care too much about the first string. It's mostly get in there, get a couple reps, don't get hurt. But, those backups, it's always fun to get a little eye on them.
Yeah, I mean, it's the bottom of the depth chart. You're as good as that last guy on your roster. So it'll be interesting. We got Dustin Clark coming in here. Dustin, thanks for coming in. You look like Marshall Mathers. I got to say. Now, obviously, Eminem. If it's not Eminem in your picture, oh, my God, you look exactly like him in that picture. Did you guys see possible pistol formation with 25 and 30? Wow. I mean, they're going to do some trick plays with both running backs on the field. I'm not the biggest fan of taking off wide receivers or better blockers for running two running backs, because when you run the ball, unless your quarterback's a running option, I don't think it adds that much deception. But it's something that they're going to do a little bit. And if they can get a linebacker in conflict, let's say you have two running backs out there and then one of them jets off to a side and the linebacker takes him, you take the guy out of the box. There is some value to that. It's just, I don't know. I always feel a little bit conflicted taking off better blockers or receivers in favor of more running backs on the field at the same time. Right.
Well, and I did hear, I think it was when Shermer did run with two running back sets, I think he ran the ball 70% of the time. So it really cues another team to what you're trying to do. And it just kind of, I mean, that other 30%, it could be a nice little trickery and how you bring things about. But Also, the other thing is just keeping those two fresh. That's why you brought these two guys in. So you can have a 1A and a 1B that can both attack a defense in a different way.
Yeah. It's we'll see. They'll definitely do it some. We got Steve Griffith coming in here. Didn't hear much about Jeff Driscoll aside from having some ability and a decent arm. Any intel on him coming out of camp? He is a guy where he will throw some beautiful balls and then he'll have some WTF balls. Just a little bit erratic. I mean, that was his big issue at Florida that caused him. I think he was the number one quarterback recruit in the country. Went to Florida because he had tools. He can run. He's got a strong arm, but just the accuracy and the anticipation has never been there. He's never really added to it. And to add to it as well, would you guys be comfortable with him coming in if Flock got injured? Knock on wood. I mean, if Flock goes hurt, you're hoping to keep your head above water and win some really ugly football games, but you're definitely going to be in a much worse situation because Driscoll it's not like where you have an older quarterback and a young, exciting guy. Like if Aaron Rodgers goes down, you have maybe something there with Jordan Love, maybe not this year, but like that type of investment. Driscoll, you're hoping you don't have to see him. And if he's in there for 2 games, you hope to go 1-on-1 kind of thing.
Right.
But it's going to be a trade-off.
You brought him in because he is a cap savings.
And he's toolsy. Like it's a lottery ticket as well because he's still decently young and he can run the same offense block. But
right, that's what I was going to say too. You can at least stay with the same offense, but it's definitely going to be a huge drop off from Locke to Driscoll, and it's shown out there at practice. Like you said, there's been the first day. A lot of people were talking about Driscoll and how good he looked. Since then, it has been really hit and miss. And my biggest worry with Driscoll is more that I'm hoping he doesn't get either Judy or Hamler hurt. Just with a inaccurate pass. Who was the last? I know. I'm sorry. I'm knocking on wood. There you go.
Theoretic.
Yeah, that's who I was. Yep. Because of an errant throw that led him into a big hit.
Who threw that? Who was the quarterback that we had to suffer through? It wasn't Brandon Allen. It was somebody before Brandon Allen.
Yeah. The guy from Stanford.
Oh, Kevin Hogan.
Yes. Hogan.
Yeah, God, that was – Kevin Hogan can win the starting job. Oh, my God. Like, that was so horrible to watch.
Yes.
God,
yes,
I could hear the ball quack out of his hand. I heard that they liked him, and he's a smart guy, but hopefully he'll be a coach someday. But NFL quarterback, he is not. We got about 10 minutes left here. Really do appreciate the chat coming in here. A lot of names. Charlie Beagle, good to see you too. Didn't see you earlier. Again, guys, subscribe, like, and share if you like our content. That helps us a heck of a lot. And go to hellodogpod.com to get your swag on, get your hat, get your apparel. That's great for us. It helps a lot. Next guy, I guess, would be Justin Stranad. He's had some flashes in coverage, but again, a 5th-round pick this year, probably more of a special teams depth guy. It seems like Josh Watson and Josie Jewell are getting much more burden than he is right now.
Right.
It's early, but it's just where we are.
Right. So, yeah, and he's another one, maybe could get onto that protected practice squad. I don't know. I don't know if you can sneak him on there or not.
I think you probably could with Albert O. Stranad, you probably couldn't with Albert O. You probably could with Stranad. I think you probably could.
Probably. All right, here we go. Another rookie, Tuska.
I've heard he's been the first guy on the field a couple times, which is good. But he's one of those guys, again, he's probably not getting much great reps. He's kind of buried on the depth chart, a little bit smaller, doesn't really have great length. But one of those ones who could really come in and be excellent in a preseason game where he could really flash. So he's one of those ones. It's unfortunate, but we're not going to really get a chance to see him.
Right. The nice thing that I've been hearing is it's not only that Von Miller and Bradley Chubb are dominating off the edge. It's that Atachu's been there, that Hollins. Justin Hollins. Hollins has been – I've heard his name a lot from people that I talk to.
I'm glad they're trying him at edge because I just did not see the off ball for him. It just not look. He's so big and long and not that bendy, but when he's so long, he can just kind of move guys. And all of a sudden he's the passer because he can create so much space because he's so long.
Right. And then, of course, you got Malik Reed, who had some starts last year.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at this point with Todd Anderson, probably practice squad.
Yep. Probably. I agree with you. So we'll see. And Moody has not been playing. Moody's going to get a redshirt year, guys. We'll see him 2021. We'll see where he falls, but probably don't expect to see him this year. And we talked about Bellamy a little bit. I've heard some good things about Douglas Coleman, actually, at safety for Texas Tech, or from Texas Tech, not at Texas Tech, because the Broncos' safety right position right now after their big two is just a massive heaping of who the heck knows. So there's an opportunity for him. Haven't not heard much about Bassey. Heard decent things about Bellamy. Obviously got the speed, and I'd rather have a guy with explosiveness than a plotter at running back, because if you're going to run, they need to have the chance to be explosive ones.
Right.
So I guess those are the big ones right now. We talked about both 7th-round picks as well. So that's the class.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so it's one of those, again, I like the class a lot. We talked about this right after the draft, that we really liked a lot of the picks the Broncos made. A couple of them we questioned a little bit. I think 2021 is always when you're looking at the draft class. Right now we're looking at that 2019 draft class and saying, okay, this is the year that they really take over. And look who it is. It's Dalton Reisner, looking like he's going to be kind of the leader of the offensive line. Drew Lock starting there at quarterback, of course, and hoping that he's going to be a star. Noah Fant, you're hoping that he can really take that next step and jump into those top 10 tight ends in the NFL. Those are your three main guys you're looking at for this upcoming season. Draymond Jones. Sorry, Draymond. Oh my gosh, how could I forget Draymond Jones? That's where you're starting to see now. These guys are going to be the core of the team this year.
Yeah, I mean that's what you want when you have good drafts, right? Those guys just kind of build on each other, and then you can have cheap, cost-controlled players for multiple years that really just become that identity and that core of the team. That's what good teams do. You obviously have your long-term veterans, but you build around that. So, we got a big one coming in here from Husky Hardcore. You didn't let us know, is it for the Huskers or the Huskies there? Figured it out. Thanks for making my 8 hours of work better. Thank you for making this hour better for us. This goes to the beer fund, since I am beer funding myself. I am a KU fan and hate Mizzou, but I have followed Block in KC since high school, and he is really good. So thank you very much, and good comment. And let us know, Husky or Husker. I guess not Huskers, because he says he's a KU.
Yeah, he's a Rock Chalk Jayhawk, man. Come on.
Fair enough.
That's the place to be. I'm still bitter a little bit about the KU was number one ranked basketball team in the nation. And, of course, they canceled March Madness.
I don't know if you've seen the odds for next year's basketball season, but I think the Hawkeyes have like a top 5 chance of winning because they're returning their entire team. Kansas will probably still beat them, but the Hawkeyes haven't made the Final Four since like 1981. So that would be big.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Like I said, right now, I'm still bitter about that. I think they should just given them the national championship trophy, said, hey, you're the number one ranked team. Here you go.
I mean, fine. Whatever. It's just a participation trophy.
Come on.
But yeah, no, Carl, is there anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here? I mean, I got to go back and do a little bit more packing stuff. Here we go. Undrafted has the best chance to make the squad. I'll go Bellamy. I think he's probably the one because I'm just not impressed with Royce Freeman. And they paid him a heck of a big deal also, which is something.
Right. And it really is. I mean, the coaches don't seem to be all that enthralled with Freeman right now, and might want a little bit more of that juice added to the offense where Bellamy can come in, make a big play here and there. And if he absolutely needs to come in, he did have a very productive college career. I mean, Royce Freeman did too, but he's an undrafted guy. And so that's one that I agree. That's probably the one. The Broncos really just didn't do much undrafted this year. They didn't have a whole lot of roster spots available. And so it just kind of – you're limited on your choices, and he seems like the one guy that keeps getting talked about in training camp.
So it is Husky, though, coming in from Husky Hardcore. So appreciate you guys very much. Honestly, I think that's all the time we have today. Carl, again, anything you want to talk about before we get on out of here? Anything exciting coming on? I still have not seen the full video of you just having your – we have 100 people still here, whatever. Your gonads ripped from your body, essentially, when you jumped from the parachute or jumped from the airplane there.
So I've got the video. I just haven't figured out quite how to upload it yet because it keeps wanting me to have people have to sign in and pay to see it. I'm like, no, I paid for this video. I don't have to have everybody else pay for it. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I'll get up there sometime this week, though.
Okay, good to hear. And I will have one more podcast on Saturday before we make the drive from Eastern Iowa to Seattle starting Sunday. We're going to spend a couple days, I think, in excuse me. Obviously social distance, masking, everything like that. But we're going to stop in Grand Teton, which will be a lot of fun. Obviously, we're going to have a puppy with us, so that won't be as easy. And Yellowstone is pretty much not accessible when you have a dog because everything is, there's a big loop, but you stop at spots and then walk a couple miles, and you can't do that with a dog in Yellowstone. So we'll come back to Yellowstone at some point, but going to hit the Tetons and then eventually make our way out to Seattle. So excited for that. That'll be a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah. Have a good trip, man.
And sorry I missed so much August with the medical condition and then the power out. Who knows what's next, but hopefully September is looking a little bit better. Guys, we appreciate the heck out of you. Duke, sorry, bud. It's the chat slowing down, and we're going to get on out here. We got stuff to do tonight, so we appreciate you. And Seattle's newest 12th man, Nick Kendell, coming in here. But we appreciate you guys. That's going to wrap it up today for Carl and myself. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler, MHH, and myself at Nick Kendell, MHH. Make sure you go over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of Sports Illustrated. Go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. It's your support can help us continue to bring you our Denver Bronco deep dives. And even more important, smash the like button on Facebook, subscribe, share on YouTube. That helps us more than pretty much anything else you can do on here. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast, wherever you listen to these shows. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. For Carl, I'm Nick, wrapping up another episode of the Mile High Insiders. Carl, I guess I'll see you again in September.
The Broncos.
We got one. Oh, did I say Mile High Insiders?
You did. I'm
sorry, man. I'm reading for both of them now. Hey, Nick, this is Building the Broncos. You're right. And no, Charlie, this is not going to become Building the Seahawks. So I refuse. Russell Wilson is just way too corny for me. Mr. Unlimited. Nah. You're a good quarterback, but I don't need any of that. Also, guys, follow Buona Beast at John K. MHA. It's got to shout you out there. Thank you guys so much. We will see you all soon. Carl, I'll see you in September. And appreciate you guys. Stay safe. Stay smart. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.